I step my rear foot behind my opponent's lead leg and then sit back, rotate, and pull him into me so that he trips in the opposite direction. Once more slowly. I step my rear foot behind my opponent's lead leg and then sit back, rotate, and pull him into me so that he trips in the opposite direction. Here I show a takedown that requires you to force your opponent to step forward. From over under control, I will rotate my body in a clockwise direction and pull him into me, causing him to step his rear foot forward into the outside of my lead leg. Notice how this positions his lead foot between my legs. To get the takedown, I drive my weight into him. A little faster. Once more, but slowly. I rotate and pull my opponent into me, causing him to step forward. With his lead leg now between my legs, I hook my lead leg around his right leg to prevent him from stepping back and reestablishing his base. To get the takedown, I drive my weight into him. Another angle. I pull my opponent off balance and then enter on his leg. This is another technique where I force my opponent to move, and then I use that movement to my advantage and execute a takedown. First off, I need to disrupt his balance and base. I accomplish this by stepping my lead foot behind me, pulling on his body using my underhook, and pushing on his body with my overhook. Keeping our bodies close, he is forced to step his rear foot forward in order to maintain his balance. Once he steps forward, I drop my left hand to his right knee to block it and drive up into him with my underhook. A little faster. I pull him, hit his knee, and then drive my underhook into him to trip him to the mat. This is very important. Block the knee and lift at the same time. Now another angle. This takedown is executed from over-under control in the clinch. To begin, I hold my opponent close to me. I dig my left hand into the crook of his right arm and then force him away from me. At the same time, I cinch down tight with my underhook, wrapping my arm over his shoulder. Once accomplished, I pivot on my right foot and rotate in a counterclockwise direction, applying downward pressure on his arm with my right hand. Next, I drop my chest and weight over his back, wrap my left arm around the right side of his head, wrap my right arm underneath his left arm, and clasp my hands together. To get the takedown, I pull him into me. After he has gone down, I circle around to his side. It is important to notice that I'm hugging his body with my right arm. This prevents him from rolling or standing back up. From here, I can begin to strike.
Mais uma vez. Tá me segurando aqui, tá fazendo força. Eu empurro. Eu empurro, me libera. Puxa.
I'm holding my opponent. I hook his arm. At the same time, I cinch down tight with my underhook, spin around, and then wrap my left arm around the right side of his head. It is important to notice how I do this from this angle. Now I will spar with my brother using the techniques I just demonstrated. Now I show a takedown for when you reach your arms underneath your opponent's arms,
você consegue
known as double underhooks, and grip your hands together behind his back to secure a body lock.
braço dentro.
When I get this position, I don't like to step behind my opponent for a takedown.
Essa queda aqui.
I will demonstrate why. If my brother gets double underhooks and steps behind me, he can execute a takedown, but it is dangerous for him as well.
Ele também,
For example, if I'm a judoka, I can use his position to execute a takedown by wrapping up his head and throwing him. So this is why I don't step behind my opponent in this fashion when I secure a double underhook body lock.
Depois de esgrimado,
I much rather use the double underhook body lock to lift my opponent up and then take him down.
voltou aqui.
So I pummel my arms underneath his arms, and from here I will lift him up and take him down.
Colocar meu pé uma na direita.
As I lift him, I use my knee to help elevate him even higher off the mat, and then I rotate and dump him down.
Uso o meu joelho para levantar ele. Um pouco mais
A
rápido.
little faster.
Esgrima.
I pummel in, and then I lift and take him down.
Mais uma vez.
Once more on the opposite side.
Consegui esgrimar.
I pummel, pick him up, and dump him. A little faster.
Abre a perna. Esgrimei. Agora. Esgrimei. Agora vamos mostrar
Now I show some defensive techniques that you can use when your opponent secures an advantageous position while in the clinch. This is important because you won't always be able to get the upper hand, and if you don't know how to get out of these sticky situations, you can take a lot of damage. First off, posture is very important when you're trapped in the Muay Thai clinch.
primeiramente
If you're hunched forward with your head down, you have no strength, and your opponent can capitalize on your positioning by throwing a knee strike. If possible, you want to tighten your neck and look up. And even better than looking up is getting one arm to the inside of your opponent's arms. You always want to fight for posture, but expect a battle.
você vai colocar sempre
If you try to pummel an arm to the inside of your opponent's arms, he will try to maintain his dominant position by tightening his elbows together.
Então, caso você não consiga,
If your opponent's grip is strong and you can't lift your head, then you want to dive your hips forward into your opponent and clasp your hands together behind his back, securing a body lock.
mais fácil de você,
You want to get close to him and then lift.
certo? Mesma coisa quando o clinch de
Here my opponent has secured a double underhook body lock. If he grabs low, then he can suck his arms into him, break my posture, and drive me over to my back. To prevent this from happening, I wrap my arms over my opponent's arms into the inside of our bodies. Once accomplished, I will move my hips backwards to break his grip and limit his control. From here, you can execute a throw. But before attempting that, you need to be defensive.
deixar,
You cannot allow your opponent to establish a double underhook body lock and pull your body into him. Once he does this, it will be very difficult to defend against his actions. So you need to wrap your arms around his arms and get your hips back before he can reach that dominant position.
clinch,
Same thing again. When your opponent gets the Muay Thai clinch, you have to control his arms and then pummel your arms to the inside of his arms and move forward. You never want to drop your head low or move backward, or he will throw knee strikes. Here you can see my opponent has locked his hands behind my head and secured the Muay Thai clinch. If I move backward, I will lose strength and he will enter with a knee strike.
então eu tenho que andar para frente. Isso aqui
So, from here I will move forward or try to pummel my arms to the inside of his arms.
que é a defesa que eu tenho aqui no momento. Mesma coisa,
Now my opponent has secured double underhooks and locked his hands together behind my back to secure a body lock.
vou tentar me afastar.
So I place my hands on his hips and then force my hips back, breaking his lock. These basic defenses for the Muay Thai clinch and body lock are mandatory. I strongly suggest mastering both of them before moving on to more complex defenses. Here I demonstrate a slightly more complex way to escape the Muay Thai clinch. First, I posture up, control my opponent's arms, and move into him. Next, I keep one arm on the outside and pummel my opposite arm to the inside of my opponent's arms.
Vou fechar junto
Once it is to the inside, I reach it behind my opponent's head and clasp my hands together.
assim, ó, e bater.
Notice how we both have the same grips now. To break his hold, I will look up and drive my left shoulder into my opponent's right elbow. To follow up, I throw a knee to his midsection and then an elbow to his head. A little faster. My opponent has secured the Muay Thai clinch. I posture up, move into him, and pummel my right arm to the inside of his left arm. To break his grip, I drive my left shoulder into his right arm. To follow up, I throw a knee and an elbow strike.
Pouco mais rápido. Vou ficando de lado, usei o meu. Pegou. Domina junto com ele, força.
Now I show a technique for when you lose the pummel and your opponent secures a double underhook body lock. So I am pummeling and my opponent beats me to the punch and gets underhooks. If I let him suck my body into his, he will be able to do all sorts of nasty stuff.
Então o que eu tenho que fazer? Eu tenho aqui, ó.
So I wrap my arms over his arms and sink my hips back as much as possible. This puts me into less trouble, but my opponent still has dominant positioning.
Troco a minha.
To eliminate that dominance, I step my left leg to the outside of my opponent's lead leg. Once accomplished, I drop to my left side, forcing my opponent to trip over my leg. As we go down, I rotate my body so that I come out on top when we land. What makes my opponent come with me are my tight overhooks on his arms. If I didn't have these overhooks, my opponent could avoid the throw by releasing his body lock. Now a little faster. Same thing on the other side. We're pummeling, and I lose the battle, so I wrap my arms over my opponent's arms and get my hips back as far as possible. Next, I step behind my opponent's lead leg, fall back, and rotate my body so that I come out on top. Now a little faster.
Eu dominei, vem pra cima.